can go across to Hong Kong and speak to pro-democracy lawmaker Claudia Mo. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Now, the world is watching what is going on in Hong Kong, whether the protests take place in the financial district or in neighborhoods like Tai Po. But why are sitting at the international airport? Is the end goal to hurt the economy, to get the authorities to blink?
I think the main idea is simply to make noise so that the international press, including you, would see, would know, would try to understand what they're trying to get at. Because the government, and Beijing included, have made no attempts whatsoever to try to heal the rift. The young are basically looking for true democracy here. There's a new China extradition bill started off as the sort of last fight in our democracy campaign. And so the things are going on as they are. The Carrie Lam regime first, again, Beijing included, try to spin it into a sovereignty issue that the young in Hong Kong are trying to overthrow the government, which is completely preposterous a claim. And then only yesterday, Carrie Lam would try to make it sound like an economic crisis in Hong Kong. That's all started by this all these young protesters. That's again another lie.
Now, one of the demands from protesters is to get Carrie Lam to go, but don't you risk getting someone who's even more pro-Beijing as her replacement?
Well, that's not the point as far as the young are concerned. Well, some of them actually thought the same, like you. Well, never mind that. But then there is such a thing as political, well, there are ethics in politics. She's made so many mistakes. She's committed so many offenses against the people. The young think, well, I myself also think that she should go. She has to pay the price for it. She has to face the punishment.
Now, in the past week or so, we've seen civil servants, lawyers, etc., take to the streets. Would you say that this movement has gone way past Hong Kong's youth?
Well, absolutely. It's become such a cross-sector campaign in Hong Kong. Everyone is involved. And the main thing is the government would still just try to blame everything on the young, calling them having no stakes in the society, that they are doing everything to destroy Hong Kong, etc., etc. Except they wouldn't believe that the young do have their own convictions, their beliefs about human rights, about rule of law. And according to Carrie Lam, the young are simply just pliable, and they're simply tools for the democratic politicians in Hong Kong. So she's completely out of touch with reality in Hong Kong.
Now, Beijing blames foreign powers, namely the United States, for meddling in Hong Kong's internal affairs, even though the US President Donald Trump has taken a hands-off approach. Why is China so determined to twist the story, you think?
I would assume that the United States is the conventional enemy of the Chinese government. I mean, ideologically speaking, but then they also have this trade dispute going on at the moment. But then, once again, I mean, what's the point of trying to blame a foreign agent provocateur, claiming that they're behind the young? It's simply not true. They are trying to just sort of hold up their ideological control over Hong Kong. And as long as they could whip up some nationalistic feelings, patriotic feelings, blame the foreigners as well, then all will be well. Now, once again, that's just a joke. It's an ongoing joke.
I want to ask you because last week China's army released a very slick video, showing them quelling protests. They were actually speaking Cantonese, not Mandarin. Do you fear that there's a risk that this movement would end in bloodshed?
Well, I suspect, I heard, I haven't really checked, that particular People's Liberation Army video has been taken off. You can't find it online anymore, apparently. But then at the end of the day,
But it
I'm
made the
sure there
noise,
are
whether it's been taken off or not.
absolutely.
It made the noise.
Yes, yes, they've made the threat loud and clear. But at the end of the day, we have to believe that there are learned people in Beijing who would realize that the repercussions and the stakes are just too high in that sort of deployment of the Chinese army into the streets of Hong Kong is just unthinkable, not just economically and politically, but also diplomatically. I mean, what's that going to? How is it going to affect the Chinese economy? There could be international sanctions, correct? And another thing is that how would China be perceived in the international community? That instead of listening to the people, they would just clamp down on the people. That just wouldn't sound right, would it? We are in 2019.
Claudia Mo, thank you very much for joining us on the program today.